All right, good morning, everybody. Okay, welcome to the Zoom call. It's Friday, January 15th, 2021. We're going to pick up where we left off. I know some classes have already covered this, but um, I know some have not. So let's talk about Hamilton versus Jefferson. In your book, we're on page 66. If you are following along with the PowerPoint, you can look at standard 8.26. It says, explain how conflicts between Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton resulted in the emergence of two political parties by analyzing their views on foreign policy, a national bank, and strict versus loose interpretation of the Constitution. All right, so on page 66, some of the important things it says that Hamilton wanted. He believed in a national bank. Jefferson thought this was a violation, uh, not a violation, but a overreach of the government. He thought that this was too much power for the central government. But Hamilton believed that this would ensure a stable economy, to give the government economic stability. Um, he encouraged people to invest in the manufacturing of the country. Remember, he wanted, and it was also the point of view of the Federalists, a global economy player. He wanted the U.S. to be on the same level as England, as Spain, as France, as these other big countries. Okay, so this is what, was what Hamilton wanted. Okay, let's take a look at that slide there. Okay, there is the standard for you to look at. All right. The link to this PowerPoint is on your Kidum assignment for today. So make sure that you look at the PowerPoint and you can use that for reference as well. Jefferson, on the other hand, favored full authority to the states. Not complete full authority, but more authority for the states. Hamilton wanted tariffs. Jefferson wanted free enterprise. If you remember what a tariff is, it's taxes on goods that are imported into a country. That is a tariff. One thing that they did agree on was neutrality. Neutrality. They thought that they should not necessarily get involved with France and Britain's war. However, Hamilton did favor the British, mainly because they were the bigger trading partner, and Jefferson favored the French because of their former alliance, and that the fact that the French came and helped the United States during the Revolution. And so that's why he favored France. Also, France was in their own revolution, and hopefully they were trying to lean towards more democratic ideals. Didn't actually turn out that way. The French Revolution got very messy, very violent, and they ended up replacing a king with an emperor. So, which one's worse? Um, so, what I want you guys to do is pause the video right now and go to the two links and watch from the play Hamilton. You can go and watch the two YouTube videos of the two different cabinet battles, rap battles from the play Hamilton. Um, both of them have been put together by an outside party for these videos, but I want you to watch the two videos on the rap battle. Okay? And then once you finish watching those, come back to page 66. Use the information there and what they were talking about in the rap battles from Hamilton, and fill in the two boxes on the bottom, the compare and contrast at the bottom of page 66. Okay, so watch that and then come back to the video. All right, welcome back. Hope you enjoyed those two epic rap battles from Hamilton. Jefferson and Hamilton were not uncordial to each other. It was a little bit exaggerated in the play, but it is fun to look at and imagine them that way. But their opinions were different. And so what this led to was the creation of these two political parties. If you look on page 67, the beginning of political parties, Hamilton and Jefferson's disagreements made it clear that two different views of how to run the country existed. And so this led to the emerging of two different political parties and birthed the two-party political system that we know and don't love today. In that farewell address, Washington talked about how political parties would just drive division in our country, and I agree with that. But that's what we got. And what ended up happening in 1796, you had John Adams running with the Federalist Party. You had Thomas Jefferson running with the Democratic Republican Party. John Adams wins by a narrow count. And the tradition of the times, the way that it worked back then, if you got second place, you got to be vice president. So you had these two people campaigning hard against each other, Adams and Jefferson. Adams wins and now has to spend the next 4 years with Jefferson, who he just defeated. So this was the first of the many things that were going to cause conflict during John Adams' reign as president, okay, during his term as president. Okay, so let's look at that next standard. Share the screen again. All right, so standard 27 says explain the controversies that plagued the administration of President John Adams, including the conflicts with Great Britain and France, the XYZ affair, and the Alien Sedition Acts. All right, so John Adams not only had conflict with his vice president, and they didn't always get along during the times because of their differing views. But he had to deal with these other things that happened as well during his presidency. So let's talk about this conflict with the French and the British, page 69 in your book. So the United States had entered into a treaty with Great Britain. We saw it in the crash course video, okay, the Jay Treaty, named after John Jay. But basically, they had been granted what they called the most favored status for trade by Great Britain. And this agreement did not sit well with France. France was angry because they had helped the United States defeat Britain, and they kind of felt like they got stabbed in the back here because of the now chumminess that Great Britain and the United States were involved in. And France kind of felt like this was at their expense. So Great Britain and France were at war when Adams came to presidency. And the French were like, hey, President Adams, you were involved in this revolutionary war. You were one of the leaders of the country at the time. We came and helped you out. And now you have an alliance with Britain, the same people we helped you defeat. What do you think about that, President Adams? And so this conflict, they tried to drag the United States in. They tried to bring them into the war on the side of France. Great Britain wanted them to come fight for them. But Adams, tried to go in and tried to create some kind of peaceful relationship with both. And this led to the XYZ affair. Okay. So you guys should have read this last night or the night before, because that was your homework to finish reading the chapter. So the French sent in 3 people to try to negotiate with the United States, and they wanted the U.S. to pay a bribe. But we said no, we would not do that. And so this led to what was kind of like a war with France, because they were angry at that we wouldn't join in, and that we wouldn't help them after they had helped us. And so this led to the XYZ affair, and that was not something that a young new country needed to be involved in, another conflict so soon after they had formed their independence. Matter of fact, that's why Washington wanted to take that stance of neutrality, not to bring our new country into something that was an ocean away. He didn't think that was a wise thing to do. All right. So basically what you have here, during John Adams' administration time as president, you had the Jay Treaty that America signed with Great Britain, basically creating this pact of commerce between the two. This angered the French because America was still paying France back for their help in the Revolutionary War. And they saw this as a violation of the agreement that France had made with the United States. And so, since America had violated this, some of the French took it under their own authority to start capturing American ships that were trading with the British. And this angered Americans, of course. And so John Adams had tried to send delegates over to France to end this problem diplomatically. But when the diplomats got there to France, they were told that they had to pay a bribe to the current French government, which was the Directory, which was one of the governments during the French Revolution, which was a huge mess. And the leader of the Directory was just trying to make a profit that he knew he could try to get before the Americans basically overtook their trading. But most of the battles that happened during this quasi-war between America and France were naval battles, and they took place in the Caribbean. And there were several hundred merchant ships that were captured by France. And this battle lasted for about 2 years. This quasi-war lasted for about 2 years. And it was during this time that Adams passed the Alien and Sedition Acts. These acts consisted of 4 different acts. You had the Naturalization Act, the Alien Friends Act, the Alien Enemies Act, and the Sedition Act. Basically, those first 3 were acts against people that came from countries that United States was at war with. So France, maybe Spain, because Spain was helping out France, and Ireland also helping out France a little bit. And so, they were deporting people that came from these countries that they thought were dangerous, or if they were at war. The Sedition Act was kind of guided towards Jefferson's Anti-Federalist Party. banned any writings thought to be false, harmful, or directed against the government. All of these acts were either repealed or expired because they were not really constitutional. They went against kind of the things that America was standing for. They were deemed unfair and unlawful. Jefferson and James Madison wrote a lot about how these were unconstitutional, and eventually by 1802, they all were gone. So it was a time when John Adams tried to do what he thought was right, but his presidency is not looked at as one of the stronger presidencies that we've had. Very smart man, but had to deal with the issue of a war that was going on that they were kind of being dragged into by France and England. Okay, it didn't help that he was of that same opinion of Hamilton, that commerce was the ultimate goal. Neutrality was not really a possibility when you signed a pact with one of the two warring sides, namely England, promoting commerce between your country and theirs. Okay, France saw that as basically choosing them in the war, and so that did not end up well. So neutrality was what they wanted. Didn't really get it because of the quasi-war that they were involved in. But this is what happened during John Adams' administration of president. All right. So basically, in Chapter 8, you've got 3 different standards. You've got Standard 8.24, Standard 8.25, and Standard 8.26. All of those are there for you in that PowerPoint. You need to know the differences between Federalists, Anti-Federalists. You need to know about the precedents that George Washington set. You need to know about the conflicts that Jefferson and Hamilton were involved in and their different views on things. And then you need to know about the controversies that plagued John Adams when he was president. Okay, so if you know those 3 things, you should be good. I've got a blue kit here for you guys to play. The blue kit that you can go through is individual. You're trying to, answer the questions to learn about it. Next class, we'll have another standard assessment on these 3 standards. We'll see you soon, guys. Thanks.